Where you site your apiaries is incredibly important to the health and productivity of your colonies. In another video in this series, I give a very long discussion about siting apiaries, do's and don'ts, things you have to consider. In this video, though, I want to really hone in on the stress associated with apiary location, but not stress from a me and you perspective or from a beekeeper perspective, but really from a colony perspective. It's really all about location. You are trying to put your bees in a place that has abundant resources, that's protected from natural disasters in the environment, that's away from vandals, etc. All of these things will go to great length to help your bees stay strong and healthy. But apiary location can induce stress in colonies. So let's talk a little bit about that. How does that happen? Well, of course, number one, you want to put your bees in an area that has ample floral resources. You want a lot of pollen in the environment, you want a lot of nectar in the environment, and you don't just want it to happen for 2 weeks in spring. You want abundant pollen flows leading up to what you hope is an abundant nectar flow. In summer, it'd be nice if there was enough nectar trickling in to keep that colony moving forward, enough pollen coming in so that they can continue to raise brood. It's great in fall if there's enough nectar and enough pollen to get those bees ready to go into winter. So choosing a site that has abundant floral resources is incredibly important to reducing stress in your colonies. If you're new to beekeeping and you're not familiar with where you should keep your bees, you should ask other beekeepers, because not all apiaries are created equal. And you can be even relatively close to another beekeeper who has a very successful apiary and yourself not be successful because the floral resources or the environment are just different enough. Now let's move to another area where apiaries can be a source of stress for your colonies, and this comes from the vulnerability perspective. What are your colonies vulnerable to? Well, obviously impacts from the weather. If you're keeping your bees in really high or windy elevations that's prone to being cold, this could be a problem. If you site your apiary in low-lying areas that get flooded, especially during heavy rains or hurricanes or storms or things like that, that could be a problem. If it's an area that you get very little rain throughout the year, that could be a problem. If it's an area that has frequent natural burns go through, or there's tornadoes or any other natural disaster that these bees are prone to encounter from an apiary, you might decide to keep those bees elsewhere. And if you think about vulnerability, it's also vulnerability from other folks. You've got neighbors across the fence who want to do their thing in their yard and not have your bees on them, right? You have the possibility of vandalism. Bees just seem to scream vandalism. When people see colonies and they want to get into mischief, you can do a lot of things to beehives if you can see them. So thinking about vulnerability when you're placing your bees can significantly reduce the stress to your colonies. Also thinking about abundant access to water, something that we don't really think about much. Bees need water to thermoregulate, and especially if you're siting an apiary in a warm place, the bees are going to need water to keep their nest cool. They're going to have to go forage for it. It's got to be clean. It's got to be available. Failure to have access to that water can doom your colonies. Certain apiary locations can also be vulnerable to other types of vandals, not of the human variety, but of the other type of mammal, like bears. Here in Florida, for example, I know where the bears tend to be more frequently and where the bears tend not to be more frequently. So site those apiaries where you're not going to encounter bears or honey badgers or raccoons or skunks or anything else that might show up in your apiary, making them not available to those critters. Of course, if these things are running wild, it's really difficult to reduce that, but there are some areas that have greater populations of these threats than do other areas. As a beekeeper, you don't want apiary location to be a source of stress to your bees. You just don't. It starts with nutrition, it goes into vulnerability, it finishes with what kinds of problems are your bees going to be to other people. Making sure that you have all of that stuff under control, providing bees apiaries that have good resources that aren't vulnerable to threats, environmental threats, animal threats, people threats, etc. Making sure they have access to ample water. All of those things will give your colonies a leg up when they're having to fight the diseases and pests that they fight or any of the other stressors that they encounter. Don't let your apiary site be a source of stress.